So it occurred to me, sitting here, and this is how everything occurs, isn't it? On the fly, in the moment, right? Preparing for this talk is an absolute delight because this is what I have always liked thinking about. Ultimate questions. Who am I? What am I doing here? What is the world? What is creation? Who is God? And if I just ask questions, that might be enough, but getting the answer is really the whole idea. And, it's not like thinking to get the answer. This right here, we're talking about silence, right? And silence is actually the highest form of answer because it's formless. Now, if that makes sense to you, you're in the right place. Because we have a practice here of receiving something. And I owe that to Ernest Holmes. So I'll give you just a little bit of background. I did make up notes, but I have a habit of just talking extemporaneously, because this is fun. This is what we're doing here. We meet and we talk together and we experience that consciousness between us, that really has all the answers, and I know that what Jesus said, I myself can do nothing, the Father doeth the works. And so this conscious mind or spirit is present as each one of us. And we say here, there's only one present, and in that silence, and Reverend Patrick used to say that what you'll take away today is what you give yourself from your own spirit. What I say is actually secondary. I get to talk into the microphone and bring up ideas, but the truth and the love and all the things that we practice and want to know about are within the individual or the individuation. And so I made up this chart, which hopefully will help. It helps me to visualize what it is that Ernest Holmes is saying. He says the mirror of the soul is this subjective mind, which is the mind of the individual. The person in a body. This is the body down here, right? So the person in the body with a mind is mirroring this silent condition of spirit, and this is where all the answers are. But they don't come into form unless we learn how to see them come into form. So this contemplator is somehow part of spirit that's here as the I am, as the individual person. And it's bringing experience directly from this conscious mind into what used to be called paradise. All right, I won't say any more about that just yet. So the soul is right-minded as far as I can see. And Ernest Holmes talks about this soul, this practitioner, this person that doesn't have any problems, that's simply using the law, which is the law of going from spirit into manifestation. There's a direct will of God that causes this to happen, right? But somehow over here in the soul, we witness this, but then something happens. And that's the mystery to me. That's what I've been looking at. Now, I was supposed to read two things before this.
Going off.
Now, Ernest Holmes doesn't talk about ego. he has the, the old Greek ideal of, this is just the individuation, it's a harmless concept. But even Home Office talks about the ego getting in the way. And it's common vernacular now, years after Ernest Holmes wrote Science of Mind, to use this word ego as a block to the flow of what we want. And my experience is that everyone here knows exactly what I'm talking about. But, in the Science of Mind, it's not mentioned. Ernest Holmes doesn't even use ego. And in fact, Ernest Holmes doesn't really talk much about anything except the solution, right? And the solution to everything in the metaphysics of Ernest Holmes is this thing called spiritual mind treatment, which begins by recognizing that this is who we are. We are the silence of God when we begin. And in being silent and formless, we have no beginning. We really have no beginning at all. So this process of perception, of being aware, is key. And I can't remember who mentioned it earlier. Somebody used the word awareness. And awareness really is silence, right? With knowing, right? If we went no further than that, we would be absolutely one with God. But because of creation, something impels us to extend this beginning, in silence and knowing. We extend it into what happens in the world, right? Now I'm going to cut to the chase, because if we're going to have a world that works for everybody, we got a long way to go. But, that's my misunderstanding. If I have a problem with that, it's a misunderstanding, because the Spirit has no problem with it. So I will confess to you that problems are something that I'm quite familiar with. And I can make them up, not just try to solve them. And some of the ones I'm trying to solve aren't necessarily problems if seen through the eyes of another person. So we have each other, hopefully not to confuse one another, but to make the world work for everyone. So that would be ideal. So Ernest Holmes has one tool that I want to mention. This, if you haven't seen it before, is spiritual mind treatment. SPMT is the abbreviation. So I'm going to put it in the conscious sphere. The conscious sphere is formless. It just knows. It doesn't have any questions about anything. It doesn't know anything but perfection. It's pure love. It's pure inspiration for this mind, this subjective mind, which is the one we're using. We're receiving from Spirit something that we identify with our awareness that we share with God. The oneness of God and the individual is the awareness. It's pure, it's unformed, it's unidentifiable with thought. And so man means thinker in Sanskrit. And so we're here thinking about this, and there's nothing to think about. So for some reason, this ego, and they call this the fall of man, became distorted and started to identify as the source rather than the subject, and that's the problem that we have on this planet, I personally, I'm into, you know, an intergalactic brotherhood. I'm out there. So Ernest Holmes didn't go there, but I do go there. We are a group on a planet that's solving problems that can only be solved by the spirit. So there's only one problem, and that's separation from the spirit, thinking that I'm that. And there's only one solution, which is knowing that the spirit has the answer and that I have to get this bloated nothingness, as Emerson said, out of the way. You know, it's not helping me. In fact, it's vexing me, causing me anxiety, fear, smallness, you know, grandiosity. All the defense mechanisms of the individual human are in the fear that I'm a phony, I'm a complete, you know, there's nothing behind this identity that's real, and I have to somehow fake it, you know. But that's the problem. And the solution is knowing where the solution is, which is in the meditation, the silence, and the spiritual mind treatment, you know. So this other arrow was to signify the problem. Ego is trying to play God, and it has no business. God, the descent of the spirit, has the whole thing handled. The teachers I'm listening to now say that there's nothing we have to do. We simply have to receive the inspiration to take the actions that are already known. They're already known at this level. And our job is to be sensitive enough to follow it. You know, they call it the law of least resistance. You know, whatever feels good. You know, and it's really that simple. If you can feel good about what you're doing, what's the problem? You know, the problem, I won't go any further. Okay, so down here is demonstration. This is a miracle. This is what happens to people, right? When they practice using mind to get what they want, right? And we don't, you know, this is now millions of years, generations later, you know, we're looking at a planet that's actually evolving spiritually. You know, it's been a while, but since the time of, this is my own personal, this is not Ernest Holmes, since the time of Jesus, there's been an upturn in understanding what we're trying to talk about here, right? So the world is down here at this level, right? The mirror of matter, what we see around us, all the forms interacting, doing what they do. And then us from this level, trying to make sense of it, you know? And when this ego is involved, we have a world very much like you can see on the news, right? It's not helpful. It causes a lot of trouble. So our job as the seeds of the world that works for everyone is to hear this silent song, you know, this truth. And as we hear it, it transforms us in ways that we really don't understand, in my way of seeing. So I have a story today from one of our members, who, I'm a licensed practitioner too, like Mary Jo said. We get licensed by Centers for Spiritual Living to pray. But it's not ordinary prayer. It's a prayer to know what we already know, to remember God as the heart of the whole thing, you know, and to practice the quiet that knows it. You know, it's somehow the formless, the silence, the meditation knows it. And the thinking mind gets confused, you know? So our job as practitioners is to clear this out, this thinking mind, and to arrive back at the source and then allow things to happen from there. And it's actually very simple. Melanie Bodetti is a member here, and she asked me to pray with her last April. I have a little bit of timeline I'll give you. Okay, April 4th, she asked me to pray for her to get a new job. Now, this is not something that practitioners don't hear, you know. People want relationships that work, they want jobs that work. And, you know, Melanie was in a situation that was unbearable to her. And she was being bullied, and people were leaving her out of things that were in her office. She hadn't had a manager, a senior leader in her department in 4 months. Well, actually, yeah, no, it was a month when she got there, or she had been there. And there was a person trying to train her, or was supposed to train her, that was not training her. And Melanie's a very sensitive spiritual woman, and you know, she wanted help. And so we started doing spiritual mind treatments for the people that appeared to be the, you know, the problem, you know, to forgive and to clear out anything that I might be projecting on them, that I was, you know, that I see them as a problem, when really the answer is in my receiving from the Spirit what is true about the situation, you know? And so we do the best we can with that by saying spiritual mind treatment, which is recognizing that Spirit has the answer and that we're open to the answer as a matter of course. And then we receive revelation. What do we do? You know, how do we proceed? So Melanie was very careful. You know, she was polite to people. You know, we have our trips and falls here and there, but you know, we continue to pray, we continue to work, and the situation went on for 10 months. In June, we began to recognize that there was a pattern with the person. There was one person in particular that was a problem. There was a pattern in that person that reminded her of an aunt she had as a child, and that this kind of authority and anger and it came out in the treatments and in the saying of the treatments that there was an enmeshment with an old pattern that started to become clear, you know, and in forgiving the person for being who they are or how they appeared to be in a situation, you know, gradually it stopped being as, you know, as painful. You know, still an intractable situation. Melanie was constantly applying to new jobs, constantly. Move your feet. If you're asking for a new job, apply. You know, go to this grocery store to get soda, go to the soda aisle, grab it. I mean, I know somebody says all this spiritual mind treatment is, you know, it's just what people do. Yeah, it is just what people do. But we want to be really clear about it and use the power. You know, use the power of Christ, you know, to get anything, because it will give it whatever it is, you know, and more. So there was a shift in blaming herself into seeing that there was a deeper pattern that we could forgive. And in June, there was a first interview for a job. There was a second interview. We were very excited. But that one didn't work out. But I knew at that point that things were turning, that the manifestation was close, you know. There was a new bursar that came in that could have been an answer, but he proved to be ineffectual. You know, the kind of environment was intolerable. You know, it was one of those old environments where there were a lot of veterans, you know, insider, you know, stuff, you know, and the bullying was like, you know, I was suggesting to her to go to the Department of Labor and file a complaint, but fortunately she didn't do that because she realized that by doing that, she would be inviting conflict into the whole process. And really, she just wanted a new job. So, you know, I learned so much from this. I can't tell you how much. I'm so grateful. Um, then there was a final incident where she was working with a couple of students, and the person that was the antagonist came in and just took them and started working with them. And Melanie didn't let go. She stayed with the two students to make sure they had their needs met. And the person that was trying to, get her away started screaming at her. And then when people came, she said Melanie was screaming at her. And the situation was so bad that the latter story was believed, right? And she got fired, So, at this point, an ordinary person might give up, but a spiritual practitioner is somebody who never give up, because we're proving this principle that life is good, that truth wins out over lies every time. Lies don't even exist in the truth, So she had another job interview. She took a job at ShopRite. She refused to take her unemployment checks. I didn't say anything about that. I mean, she is a really, really innocent, beautiful soul. And finally, she got an interview at Middlesex Community College, and it was everything she'd been asking for. I could cry talking about it now. So the contrast in the spirit is so powerful that it just produces this gratitude that nobody knows how to do this. Only Spirit knows how to produce the gratitude and the love that really make life worth living. It really knows how to do it. And as we practice turning it over to that power, we learn how to be in its flow. That's the best I think I can do, is just to pray to be in the flow of that knowing, because it has no questions. It has no questions what to do. So now I just had a few notes here, and I'll wrap up with this. What I was going to read from the home office had to do with what there is to learn when we quiet the voices that are distorting the song, and actually Melanie's story was a much better example of what Spirit does and why we practice what we practice. God gives more than we're asking for. We, in my experience, I'm not going to speak for you, I sell myself short asking for the things I want, because so much more is available. And Ernest Holmes says the same thing. You can have everything in the mental equivalent that you want, and I'm beginning to believe that, but I have a long history of not believing that. So my spiritual mind treatment is to learn things like that, we only have a short period of time in the body, but that's the way, to me, it can be spent learning incredible things. Ernest Holmes says that we don't have to come back here, and I'm not sure we do, but I think most of us do. That's just my own research, says that this reincarnation thing is real, and there's more subtleties to it than that, but I won't go into it. You don't have to. You don't have to come back. And I don't think Ernest Holmes did, because he believed he didn't have to. So that's that power of belief that kind of gives us everything we want. The Spirit has nothing invested in giving us everything we want. Jesus said it's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. He said, why would you ask for anything else? And I said, I don't know how I learned to do it, but I've learned to distort things. And that's what this ego is. It's a distortion of the principle, that puts value on things that are not necessarily valuable. So, let's see, time is shortened for the sake of the elect. So if you want something in your life, spiritual mind treatment is the absolute best way to get it. If we believe that power brings it in the time that the faith says it's there, So really, you don't have to go searching for anything. You simply find it and find how it feels within, and then you have to experience it. It's like a magnet. So beauty occurs in contrast. What appears to be ugly or horrible can have a great, great beauty. Like I still pray for that woman who, who does things like that. I mean, that's just not. I pray for her to have love and peace and all the things that everyone wants. Why not pray for that for everybody? Because when they get it, maybe they'll give you a little. Okay. I have all kinds of other things I could say. I think I've probably talked too long. I lose track of time. I remember one time I had there was an hour meeting, and I spoke for the whole hour, and there were supposed to be questions at the end. And somebody had to stop. Stop. We have to go now. We're going to say. Okay. So God bless you all, and thank you for being here. And I will close my remarks with a spiritual mind treatment.